Let's talk defense for a minute. We've talked about spring and some of the murmurs that are coming out of spring ball. More than a murmur coming out of spring ball about the defense for Georgia. How do I put this? I'll put it how I usually do. Fire hot, water wet, Georgia defense good. These are things that we've come to know about the earth. Okay? I don't have any reason to have any questions about Kirby Smart and his defense. I just don't. We're going to talk about it because it's fun to talk about, and there's so many studs. I mean, there's just studs everywhere. But keeping on the spring ball thing, C.J. Allen seems to be the guy that I'm hearing. This is not only his defense. It's not just his linebacker room. It's not just his defense. I'm hearing this is his team. That's what I'm hearing coming out of spring ball. And that is something that's really, really exciting for me. First of all, C.J. Allen played football 40 minutes from where I'm sitting right now. Local guy, okay? It means a lot to him. The state of Georgia means something to him out of Lamar County over there. And not to mention, I saw flashes of him last year that were just like, and by flashes, I mean, whoa, who was that? Like, it was literally a flash. The guy's got what it takes. He just needed some development. I suspect C.J. Allen is going to be the toast of the SEC as far as at that particular position at linebacker there. But Raylan Wilson is a guy I'm hearing a ton about. The biggest question, I guess, for me, I love those guys. I love some of those star players. Georgia loses a ton of depth on the defensive line. There was like a 8 or 9 man rotation last year. And there was no defensive lineman that was just like, whoa, that guy's a first round pick. There wasn't none of that, but there was a bunch of dudes that were like, hey, he could play in the NFL. He could play in the NFL. Like, it was consistent from the number 1 guy to the number 8 guy. You pretty much knew what you were going to get. You lose some of that experience. Xavier McLeod and Christian Miller have got to have a big season for Georgia if Georgia wants to get where they want to go as far as possibly winning a national championship. Obviously, the number 1 goal for every team is make the college football playoff. But Xavier McLeod, Christian Miller, Jordan Hall, those guys got to go off, man. I mean, I don't know any other way to put that. You got some of the freshman star talent. Very few freshmen can contribute on the defensive line. So we'll see. I mean, Georgia always has really star-studded guys. We'll see if they're able to come in, pick it up quickly, and get out there and be productive for the defensive line. I personally am super excited about the secondary. Me personally, I am extremely excited to see what KJ Bolden is going to be able to do this year. I with just having the whole year to himself and hoping he stays healthy. Obviously, I think that he's got a really, really good chance to have a great season. I'm happy with Dalen Everett, how his developments went. Daniel Harris, I think he'll be a little bit better. So I feel good about the linebacker and the secondary room. It's just all up to that defensive line group, to me, to depict where Georgia's season goes as far as the long haul in 2025. What are your thoughts on the defense? Who are some guys that you're hearing about? I'm hearing that the defense is dominating in spring ball. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a huge surprise, especially considering some of the changes that have went on Georgia's offense with the wide receiver room and the offensive line. Doesn't really surprise me that the defense would be ahead of the offense. See ball, get ball is a totally different thing than running a structured offense. So what are your thoughts on what we're hearing coming out of camp, and what's your kind of outlook for this defense going forward in 25?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. Look, you're losing 3 first-round draft picks in Malachi Starks, Jalen Walker, and Michael Williams. You're losing in total, 4, 5, 8 players off of the defense to the NFL, maybe 9 if Chaz Chambliss gets an invite. That's a lot for any team to lose. It really is. However, I'm not going to say this. There's addition by subtraction, but there is a possibility for this defense to have gotten better, and in particular on the defensive line. Michael Williams was banged up for most of the season. I think that we saw him healthy in some games, and we saw him absolutely wreck some games, but for about 80% of the season, he was banged up. So we didn't get him at 100%. Does a guy like a former 5-star and Joseph Jonah Ajonye, does he step up as a redshirt freshman and become that next Michael Williams? I'm hearing that he very well might. You've got a true freshman in Isaiah Gibson, former 5-star, who's also going to play defensive end out of Warner Robins, and it sounds like he's every bit fitting the bill as a guy who's probably going to contribute more on the back half of the season. Christian Miller he was a guy that must come back for Georgia because behind him, there's a lot of inexperience and youth talent for sure. You've got behind him Nnamdi Ogboku, who was the number 36 overall player in the country. He'll be in his second year at 6'6", and I don't know how much he's weighing these days, probably about 310 pounds, but a very, very talented young nose tackle behind Christian Miller. And then Xavier McLeod. I've liked everything I've seen out of McLeod. We haven't seen him play a ton. He's been kind of buried on the depth chart, but the South Carolina transfer has impressed me with his fire and his motor coming out of that defensive tackle position. And with him, kind of rotating, I don't know if I would necessarily say he's ahead of Jordan Hall, but I think McLeod and Hall are kind of 1A and 1B at that defensive tackle position and could probably both see the field in some sets. But Jordan Hall is a guy who's been banged up for the past 2 years. So with him healthy, I know he's a vocal leader. With him healthy, as a former 5-star himself, what is he going to contribute to this defensive line? And then the 5-star that everybody's talking about on campus that if you hadn't heard about him, you will. It's the defensive tackle Elijah Griffin out of Savannah. This guy, I'm hearing he's Jalen Carter 2.0. I'm hearing that there's not a more physically ready defensive tackle, true freshman, or defensive line true freshman in the entire country. And this guy at I think he's 6'4", 300 pounds. He looks like he's NFL ready to play on the defensive line. He's not going to be kept off the field. Elijah Griffin is a guy that you should be watching for Georgia for sure. Looking at the linebackers, you mentioned Gabe Harris and C.J. Allen. Love those guys. Raylan Wilson and C.J. Allen. I'll get to Gabe Harris in a minute. But behind them, I think Justin Williams and Chris Cole are equally as talented, and they're in year 2, they're ready to play. I think Chris Cole probably has a better opportunity to see more snaps because he's so versatile. You can put him at nickelback if you needed to. You can kind of put him all over the field with his length and his speed. But I'm hearing Justin Williams is just relentless, like a Nolan Smith type motor, but playing as a middle linebacker. Scary sort of freak athlete. And he's not going to be denied playing time. So it'll be interesting how those 4 kind of work things out. And then behind them, you've got a true freshman 5-star running or linebacker coming in Zayden Walker as well. Another very talented guy. At the jack position, I mentioned Gabe Harris. I don't know. I think the jury's still out on Gabe Harris. He played pretty well last year. I saw him also kind of over pursue in some instances. But behind him, you've got the former quarterback, Quintavious Johnson, who's impressed ever since he got to campus last year. He's still learning, but the fact that he's already cracked the 2 deep in his second year after converting from quarterback, that's quarterback. He was throwing the football 2 years ago, and now he's playing on the defensive line or as an outside linebacker for Georgia. That's saying something. The guy's talented nonetheless. And then real quick on the secondary, we're good in a lot of situations in a lot of positions. So KJ Bolden, Dalen Everett, Janelle Aguero, I think those three are kind of locked up. Dalen Everett, I think, is going to be really a lockdown corner this year. He's progressed throughout his career, but I saw
Yeah.
the most growth out of him last year throughout the
Mm-hmm.
year. He was pretty impressive to me. Um, uh, Safety coming over from Miami, believe it or not, Jaden Harris is a guy who looks to be locking down that strong safety position. I think that there's a battle going on between him and Kyron Jones. I'm also hearing Andre Evans, Ja'Cory Thomas, Zion Branch, Zachariah Branch's brother. They're all kind of in the mix there for that strong safety position. So we don't know who's going to play opposite of KJ Bolden as of yet. It'll probably be sort of a platoon there at that position. And then you got a battle going on at the other cornerback slot between Daniel Harris and the number, I think, 2 overall player, Ellis Robinson, who
Mm-hmm.
is a redshirt freshman this year. And by all accounts, everybody's telling, or all I've heard about him is that he's arrived as a cornerback. He's locked down. He's super smooth and just very sticky. But then Daniel Harris kind of adds a little bit of a different element in his size and his length that not a lot of cornerbacks have, and to have that and to be able to keep up with these wide receivers like he does, it's really impressive as a physical athlete. So a lot of competition going on the back end of the defense. Kirby and his crew wouldn't have it any other way. But I believe that this defense is probably going to be the best defense Georgia has had. I would say since 2021, if I had to put money on it today.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it, man. I mean, Ellis Robinson is another one that I was trying to mention, and I actually heard somebody call him Elias Robinson the other day. Somebody said that maybe his name was pronounced that way. I don't know. Just kind of peeking ahead, man, at the schedule.